All right, you know, it's not just for Halloween anymore. People seem to really be fascinated with vampires all year long, really.
And tonight, we have our very own vampire expert from the UW-Madison, Professor Tomislav Longinovic. We thank you very much for being with us today, and we're going to call you Professor Toma for now on. And are we going to take a three-shot here so we can see who we're talking
Oh, yeah. Well, I think we're trying to figure that out. I know.
He is here.
He's really here. He's not like an invisible vampire.
Thank you for having me,
Professor Toma, great to see you. Thank you for joining us. Now, you've been teaching actual courses on vampires.
Yes, I've been teaching this course since 2003 called The Vampire in Literature and Film at the UW, and it started as a regular course with 24 students, and now it's grown to 300 because it seems that the students are very interested in this topic.
I'm sure. Where does the vampire originate?
In the modern sense, the vampire folklore originates in the Balkan region. So because we teach languages from the Balkans, Serbian, Croatian, Bosnian, Montenegrin, and so on, it fell to our department to actually start teaching the course that explores the image of the vampire, its cultural representation throughout history.
And you told us before the segment that you get asked all the time by students, do they really exist? Do you believe they really exist? And you try to dodge that.
When I grew up, you know, in the old Yugoslavia, you know, my grandparents would always warn me not to go, you know, in the dark, you know, near the well, and so on and so forth. So obviously, some people do believe. Of course, I'm, you know, a modern person. I don't really believe in them, but I try to leave the question open. Because I think as far as there is some mystery around the whole question, the interest will persist.
Yeah, and you've written several books on vampires. Can you tell us about that and what kind of response you get?
Well, you know, the books about the vampires are actually using vampire as a metaphor or an allegory for the rise of nation and nationalism in the 18th century. And an interesting phenomenon that this is exactly the time where scientists start looking for vampires and try to explain why they exist. So there is kind of an interesting parallel. So in the search of vampire for fresh new blood and always keeping a little soil, a chunk of soil in their pockets or in their coffins. So these topoi of blood and soil are also the main sort of hang-ups of the nation and nationalism, our national territory and common blood that we share. So I'm actually analyzing it in political and historical terms.
Political sense as well. It always seems like there's a great vampire movie, you know, and I mean, what is it? There's a romance to it as well. I mean, you see movies like Twilight and the romantic components. I mean, what is it that kind of fascinates the American public about vampires?
I think it's actually that last part, and when I ask my students why are they so interested in the Twilight series, they usually talk about adolescence and adolescent lust, you know, basically, and that's why, you know, they're so interested in this particular topic. But the vampire itself in the old country was not associated anyway with eroticism and sexuality like it is nowadays. It was seen as a disgusting, awful, decaying creature. And basically we get the whole idea from Gothic literature. As the vampire image travels from folklore to literature, it changes and it gets this sort of extra appeal of a, you know, tall, dark, mysterious stranger who is Dracula and who, you know, is able to hypnotize and seduce his victims, you know, unwillingly.
Well, my last question, do you have a favorite vampire?
Yes, I do. My favorite is actually the oldest film representation. It's Nosferatu from the 1920, an F.M. Murnau film. I think that we are doing a rerun at the Cinematheque in Madison this weekend.
Yeah,
cool.
It's always popular, those movies this time of the year. Well, Professor Toma, very interesting. Thank you very much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
Happy Halloween
It was a pleasure.
as well.
Happy Halloween.
Thank you.
Thank you.